May he rest in peace. Thank you.
Live from the boxing capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada, Crown Boxing presents The Legend Returns, the World Boxing Federation Heavyweight Championship, Evander Holyfield versus Frans Botha.
And Frans Botha makes the long walk in down the corridors here at the Thomas and Mack Center, where some of the greatest fighters in the history of boxing have taken the same walk before. Frans Botha with 4 losses, his last 2 losses to Klitschko, no complaint there, and Lennox Lewis. This guy has fought all comers. He's a warrior. He loves to fight in his time off from boxing. He's been involved in kickboxing and MMA. This is a guy who really enjoys what he's doing, and he's not out here for money. He's out for the joy of competing. And tonight we're going to get to see Frans Botha go up against Evander Holyfield.
And one of the things that Botha does bring into this fight is a 4-fight win streak. No, it's not against the absolute top competition in the heavyweight division. It's against some journeyman fighters. But what it does is show a kind of an activity and the fact that he's still viable as a heavyweight. And you mentioned his toughness, going off and fighting K1, kickboxing, and mixed martial arts in a foreign country. It shows the grittiness that he has. He is a very dangerous fighter for at least 5 or 6 rounds. Now, he's had better moments in later rounds in some fights, but in truth, you know, the second half of fights not as good for him, but for the first 5 or 6 rounds, he's a fighter who can make things very difficult for anyone, as he did against Mike Tyson, one of the common opponents between these two.
Well, as you say, Frans Botha very, very effective for 5 or 6 rounds. The problem is 12 rounds. Now, the other question is, how will Evander Holyfield at 47 years of age handle 12 rounds of fighting?
Yeah, that's also an issue, but he's done it in his last 2 fights. And what are the keys to victory for Frans Botha as he steps into the ring and gets ready to face Evander Holyfield? He's a fighter who certainly, as we said, aggressive in the early part of the fight, and will try and do that. So part of it is he's got to, I think, use his jab effectively against Evander Holyfield and win the battle of the jabs early. I think he's got to get on the inside against Holyfield and rough him up, and he's got to land the overhand right, if at all possible.
And Frank Luca, matchmaker, talking to Frans Botha, and he does everything you want for a fighter leading up to a fight. Very accessible, a charming character.
Yeah, he's been a great person in the lead up to this fight to be around. Always the case with him. Affable, congenial, but there's an edge to this guy, and that's why he's a boxer, and that's why he went into MMA, and that's what we're hoping will emerge in this fight as well, and he says it will.
Well, he's a fighter, though he hasn't had the big wins, has fought everyone that wants to fight him, and again, with 4 losses, all with world champions, that's a guy who can fight. And we take a look at Evander, the real deal Holyfield, coming out, and that's a face, Al, that even if you're the most casual boxing fan, you know him. He has been one of the great heavyweights of all time, a 4-time world champion, walking down the Thomas and Mack. He first walked down this hallway back in 1992 against Riddick Bowe.
And that was a fight, as I mentioned at the top of the show, that kind of stamped the career of Evander Holyfield. He fought a much bigger man, fought gallantly, lost the fight. And I'll never forget the moment of being back in that dressing room with him. I did that broadcast, and he was sitting down against the wall on the ground, and I had to sit down with him to do the interview, and it was just a fallen warrior. But you knew that his spirit was not dampened. And that was a long time ago, and here he is still participating in the heavyweight division and still anxious to get a chance to win. And here's the point, and I know people will criticize him fighting at 47, maybe justifiably so, but here are two facts. He fought Sultan Ibragimov a couple years ago and went 12 rounds with him, pushed Ibragimov in the last round, and just a year or so ago fought Nikolai Valuev, who was the heavyweight champion, really won that fight. And the fans giving Evander Holyfield some love here at the Thomas and Mack.
And in the Ibragimov fight in particular, that's a fight where he came in strong at the end. The Valuev fight, I think 90% of people who saw that fight said he came away with it. So he still has a lot of tools in his tool bag at the age of 47.
And I think the key is, against a Botha, two fighters toward the end of their career, we expect it to be entertaining, to be perfectly candid. I expect them to throw punches and make it interesting. We'll see if they do, and we hope they do. This crowd, and for the moment.
And you take a look at, just in the last 15 minutes, this arena has changed. The energy levels coming up. Thousands of people clearly buying their tickets at right before fight time. This is a great atmosphere. And now we take it up to ring announcer Jake Gutierrez.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we wish to honor America with our national anthem. Would everyone please rise, and gentlemen, remember to remove your caps. Here to sing our national anthem, please welcome Miss Joey Fulco.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the balls bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Joey Fulco, and presenting the colors this evening, the Nellis Air Force Base Honor Guard.
Let's take it up to Jake Gutierrez at ringside.
Ladies and gentlemen, Crown Boxing, Frank Luca Matchmaker, and the Thomas and Mack Center are proud to present our featured bout of the evening. It's scheduled for 12 rounds of boxing for the WBF Heavyweight Championship of the World. This bout is sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The chairman is Pat Lundvall. The executive director is Keith Kaiser. Commissioners are Francisco Aguilar, Skip Avancino, Bill Brady, and T.J. Day. Also, this bout is sanctioned by the WBF. The WBF supervisor is Howard Goldberg. Physicians at ringside, the lead is Dr. Anthony Ruggiero, assisted by Dr. Rodney Corson, Dr. Michael Gunter, and Dr. Vicky Mazzarana. Our timekeepers this evening will be Steve Esposito and Ernie Howdigi. The three judges scoring this bout will be Glenn Feldman, Jerry Roth, and Herb Santos. And when the action starts, the man in charge, referee Russell Mora. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from the Thomas and Mack Center, right here in exciting Las Vegas, Nevada, it's time for the leather to fly. This is the main event. Introducing first, he fights out of the red corner. He entered the ring wearing the black trunks, and he weighed in at 250 pounds. His professional record, 47 victories with only 4 defeats, 3 draws, including 28 big wins by knockout. Originally from Witback, Mpumalanga, South Africa, he now makes his home in Newport Beach, California. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the current and defending WBF heavyweight champion of the world, Francois, the White Buffalo Botha. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the blue corner. He's wearing the white trunks, and he weighed in at 220 pounds. His record, 42 victories, 10 defeats, and 2 draws, 27 big wins by knockout. Coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, introducing the former 3-time cruiserweight champion of the world and the only 4-time heavyweight champion of the world, Evander, the real deal, Holyfield.
I want to remind you that I expect a clean fight. Protect yourself at all times. Obey my commands at all times. God bless. Touch up. Touch up.
We take a look at how these fighters stack up. Clearly, they are very similar in some of their numbers, the height and reach. And obviously, both is a lot bigger. He wants to use that girth on the inside.
Franz Botha will come out very aggressive. Evander Holyfield, the more cerebral of the two fighters. Evander in the white trunks, Franz Botha in the black trunks.
We mentioned Botha normally in early rounds is a little bit more effective. There's the overhand right away. If you're Franz Botha, good idea. Get your best weapon out there as quickly as you can in this fight.
Evander Holyfield, a much lighter fight, has gotten heavier as the years have gone on, but still superbly conditioned at just 220 pounds over a 6'2" and 3/4 frame.
And still a small heavyweight by today's standards.
No question. And never the big power punch that you would like in a heavyweight.
Well, he knocked many heavyweights out, but he does it with a series of punches. Now, early in this fight, I would expect Holyfield to establish his jab a little bit to try it.
Holyfield stepping inside, using that left. Botha punching out of the clutch with a little right uppercut.
Botha holding very effectively on the inside, not allowing Holyfield to work, and then landing that uppercut.
Oh, the big right hand by Franz Botha.
To the body, a monstrous right hand. This is when Botha, as we said, is dangerous in fights. In these early rounds, he did it against Mike Tyson. He's done it against other heavyweights where he has shown his power. Ultimately, Tyson was able to get him out of there. Of course, one of the common opponents the two men have, also Lennox Lewis, who beat Franz Botha and had a draw, and also beat Holyfield once.
Even in a clinch, that right hand of Botha is super powerful. It's like a pile driver. You can feel the power of the heavyweights punching at ringside.
Botha just kind of clubbed Holyfield on the head with both hands. That was an odd maneuver.
Haven't seen that a lot.
No. Botha, for round one, for whatever it's worth, for this round, Botha has completely imposed his will physically on Holyfield. Holyfield missing with a wild left hook.
Botha doing a much better job in the close course fighting. Evander not really usurping his will in terms of using that jab and keeping Botha away.
And Holyfield kind of willing to muscle on the inside. There again, cuffing the head of...
What is it about Evander Holyfield's ears in Las Vegas?
Yeah, exactly.
It's not Easter.
So odd. It's an illegal maneuver by Botha, and it's strange. I don't remember seeing him do that in the past. He did it again.
He's going to get a warning here.
I don't know what that's about. Maybe
is it psychological?
May be a reaction to him being worried about Holyfield using his head. Because let's face it, people have accused Evander Holyfield of it before, and it has happened. That was an odd, very odd maneuver.
Boy, and to do it 3 times.
Yeah, after being warned once. Tommy Brooks, by the way, the trainer in the corner with Evander Holyfield. A wonderful trainer, one of the best in boxing.
As we take a look at activity from round number 1.
Botha using his jab on the outside. There's the overhand right that he landed early in the round.
And you made a very good point about Holyfield using his head to his advantage. As we take a look at the clutch there. And that's a spot where you can get hurt.
Nice uppercut on the inside by Fran Botha. And,
he's landed 3 of those in round number 1 as we take a look at the 4-time heavyweight champion of the world, Evander Holyfield. Round number 2 coming up next. This is scheduled for 12 rounds in the heavyweight division from Las Vegas, Nevada.
And other than the 3 strange instances with Botha, he controlled, for the most part, the first round. You see Botha holding that arm. He may get a point deduction for that at some point. That was a legal right hand by Botha because they weren't broken by Mora.
And Botha, as you mentioned, really usurping Holyfield, his will coming out. Holyfield being aggressive, using that body. And even though he's in a clutch, Botha managing to get some shots in. Well, Evander needs to do a better job of tying him up.
Well, it's Botha doing the tying up on the inside, and he's creating a situation where he can land some punches. The Holyfield jab has not yet become
big right hand.
Holyfield takes another right.
Boy, that is just a steel-driving punch of Botha. That right hand, very effective. And if Evander Holyfield wasn't in such great condition, those body shots would be extracting more of a toll.
Well, they may as this fight continues, if Botha can sustain this over a longer period of this fight.
Halfway through round number 2 of a 12-round scheduled heavyweight fight. Fran Botha in the black trunks, Evander Holyfield fighting off his heels in the white trunks.
Those are good body punches by Botha. And if Evander Holyfield, in his last 2 fights, I mentioned, there's a good right by Holyfield, that he did fairly well against Abragamov, and then, of course, in spots, fought very well against Valuev, and part of it was Valuev not doing anything. Botha much more aggressive than either Abragamov or Valuev against Holyfield early in this fight, and that's giving Evander issues.
And a much stronger puncher than either of those fighters.
Well, arguably, probably is.
You traveled all the way to the Soviet Union I understand you were on the 18-hour Soviet Union, or Russia, excuse me, to be correct.
Got there in the afternoon, and because of missed flights, and had to leave that night. But it was an intriguing situation. Botha, again, controlling this round, and managing to avoid fouls as well.
And in a 12-round fight, 2 rounds not as important, but nonetheless a start that Botha really wanted to have.
Nice overhand right by Evander Holyfield. And you're right, he'd like a start like this, Botha. And the body work's been really impressive by Fran Botha. Surprisingly, I think.
You mentioned that Botha is one of those fighters who comes out and is great typically in the first 5 or 6 rounds. He's done a good job through 2 rounds at Las Vegas, Nevada. We take a look at Evander in his corner. his team probably talking to him about establishing that jab and start to show a little bit more ring generalship. He seems to be letting the big fella Botha take the fight to him.
Well, and one of the things that it happens when you're an older fighter, he's having a little bit of a hard time putting his punches together. That was always the strength of Evander Holyfield before. There's the overhand right that was his best moment in the last round. And the body work of Botha. And the right hand that I don't think it really hurt Holyfield, but just kind of pushed him off balance.
Is his moniker a pretty accurate run, the White Buffalo?
Yes.
He shows very little quit. Both fighters with biblical references on their shorts. They're not showing a lot of biblical nature here. They're both going at it pretty strong. Frans Botha in the black trunks, Evander Holyfield in the white trunks with purple piping.
And Holyfield coming forward, and you could feel like he wants to establish his jab and throw some combinations, just hasn't been able to do it. And both are really holding on the inside. And that's something that at some point Russell Mora may take a look at.
Russell Mora having issues with Botha in the first round for that ear slapping.
That went away in round 2, thankfully. There was a rabbit punch by Botha. We saw that in a fight with a couple of veterans a week or so ago, and it wasn't very becoming. That was the Jones-Hopkins fight. Botha's game plan is very simple. Throw punches, tie him up, throw punches, tie him up.
He does not want to let Evander get off any combinations. And so far, that game plan has been effective, and he's executed it very well.
Yeah, he really has. And on the inside, Botha's doing a pretty good job of working to the body as well.
And you mentioned that we don't know what toll that will extract from Holyfield as the night goes on. 12 rounds is a lot of boxing, 36 minutes if this thing goes the limit.
Well, I think it's kind of a race in time. There's the question of Holyfield's age, although he went 12 rounds in his last 2 fights, and there's the question of Botha's normal fading after 6 or 7 rounds. So which will be more likely? We'll see.
We're seeing 2 arcs coming together. Interesting. He's almost like a tennis player. He grunts as he comes in. It kind of forecasts. But when he lands that first shot, he steps in, and you're exactly right, tries to tie Holyfield up.
The Botha right hand not quite as accurate as it was in the first 2 rounds. Nice left hook by Botha, gets in.
Botha,
and another
working to the body.
That is not a punch Frans Botha hardly ever throws. So that's a surprise.
Evander tying up Botha. Do you think his work in MMA and kickboxing has been advantageous in terms of his balance?
You know, as Holyfield lands that good right hand, I'm not sure it's helping balance. It's just an indication of his toughness, and I think he never bought into that in terms of all the technique. It was more as a tough guy.
And tough guy he's got in spades. And a nice flurry to end round number 3. So we took a look at Frans Botha in the corner. Through 9 minutes of boxing, he looks to be in pretty darn good shape. Now in Evander's corner. Also not breathing heavy.
Here is Botha attacking, and he had landed a decent left hand there. He landed a couple of other left hooks that were effective. And that's the Holyfield right hand that from the last round that was significant.
But not a lot of power behind it.
Not a lot. Push that punch a little bit. And again, there's Tommy Brooks working with him in the corner. Tim Hallmark, his condition trainer also. And when we talked to Tim the other day, he said he feels Evander is physically ready for this fight, but he's not been that active so far.
Round number 4. This is a scheduled 12-rounder. It's the main event. 12 rounds of heavyweight action. Trip Mitchell, Al Bernstein calling the action from ringside. Glad to have you with you from all over the world on our pay-per-view broadcast tonight. Hope you're enjoying the action. Holyfield showing some good quickness despite the fact he's 47 years old. Came in at 220 pounds, a good weight for him. Botha weighing in at 250 pounds. Really the fight going all Botha's way so far through 3 rounds of action.
Holyfield, as he was in his recent fights, not wildly active. And that, of course, there's some nice work on the inside by Holyfield.
That's the best left we've seen out of that clutch.
Absolutely. Probably the two best left hooks he's thrown in this fight. Now, Holyfield had all kinds of shoulder issues that made it impossible almost for him to throw his signature left hook. His shoulder is much, much better, and he can throw that left hook. He just needs to unload it a bit.
And when Botha throws that right, he totally commits to it. He is throwing everything after that punch. Botha with his hands down, kind of a unique style. Holyfield, much more classic style, hands up. And it'll be interesting to see if Holyfield can continue and throw some good punches out of the clutch. Botha, that jab is very, very quick. Holyfield with a good reach advantage so far has not established that jab. And you see Botha, when he goes to work, hits the body.
The lack of activity by Holyfield hurting him very badly in these rounds. Again, he's not pressuring Botha, and part of the reason why Botha may have those lapses after the 5th, 6th rounds of fights is if you push him. But if you don't push him, then he may not.
And you had mentioned earlier in the fight that Holyfield needs those combinations to wear his opponents down, and he's not getting away with that. He's throwing just isolated punches.
He is a right hand by...
Finally, a nice right by Holyfield.
Yeah, after a right hand by Botha. Botha now backing himself in against the ropes a little bit. And the holding now, I think, an issue. Botha doing a lot of holding on the inside, and I think Russell Mora may look at that.
Russell Mora, a very, very experienced referee with lots of title fights in his pocket. Despite the volleys, no fighter really looking like he's been hurt. Four rounds of boxing. Franz Botha starting to look a little winded.
Well, both fighters, in truth, we have 40-plus heavyweights here, so both 40-plus, and we'll be obviously monitoring that very carefully. And as we look back, the clubbing right hand, but that was the counter right hand that Holyfield landed. That was a very good straight right hand.
Though, in truth, not causing much of a problem for Botha.
No, and the big issue for Evander Holyfield right now is his lack of number of punches.
And he has to feel like this fight has not started out the way he wanted. Now, maybe his strategy is to tire Botha out and use his conditioning to improve as we get through round 6th, 7th, and 8th. But in truth, he's put himself behind in the cards, one would likely think. Evander Holyfield coming in as a 4-time world champion. Franz Botha, a game fighter who's gone up against some of the best over the last 2 decades of heavyweight fighting. Round number 5, 12 rounds of heavyweight fighting from the Thomas & Mack in Las Vegas, Nevada. Franz Botha with a smile on his face.
There's that overhand right, and then a right hand that bodied straight low, and another one strays low.
Boy, and it almost seemed like Holyfield stepped into that punch that was going wild and took some of the brunt. Botha continuing to tie up Holyfield and getting that warning that both fighters that you talked about. Both fighters a little wild with their punches. Holyfield landing a nice right hand.
That was a good combination, the jab and the right that followed it. both committing again to the body, which I think is a good idea for him.
He does drop his hands in that situation. Is that an opportunity for Evander to come in?
Well, it would be, but Evander has not been quick, and that was a good right hand again by Botha.
Evander with a wild left hand.
Holyfield's just kind of lunging and missing with those left hands, and that's, you know.
The fans starting to wonder whether Evander's letting this one get away from him.
Well, Franz Botha, we mentioned at the top of the show, feeling a bit like an afterthought in some respects. He just landed a very good right hand. He feels like he's the more active fighter recently, and he feels like there were some edges for him coming into this fight. So he's shown some of that already in this match.
Not been a pretty fight by any means.
No.
But Botha extracting a lot of punishment, working the inside, throwing off a flurry of punches and grabbing and clutching. Holyfield doing a better job when he's in tight with Botha, not letting him get off that right.
Yeah, but the problem is Holyfield can't really land anything on the inside because Botha's holding him so effectively. And this round has been probably the most one-sided of the fight on behalf of Botha. He's landed good shots from the outside. He's been fairly active, even for, especially for a heavyweight, fairly active.
Well, and maybe that MMA background is helping a little bit in terms of he's doing a great job holding Evander. And
if he gets him in a rear naked choke, we know he's paying attention. Crowd trying to summon something for Holyfield by chanting his name.
And Holyfield steps in. Holyfield always doing a good job in the last 5 seconds of the round. He needs to mirror that for about another 2:55. As we take a look at Franz Botha, he has to be very pleased with the first 5 rounds of this fight. He's carried it to Holyfield and really gotten his way.
See an example of that. Right hand, and that was a good right hand, followed by a right that strayed a little low, and then you'll see another one. Well, we didn't see it there, but he threw yet another one to the body.
And as I mentioned, Holyfield walked into that right and kind of stunned him.
Countering with the right as the fans look on here at ringside, checking out this heavyweight match.
And through 5 rounds, Evander definitely on his heels. Now, this is a situation that you had mentioned where a lot of times Botha falls off after 5 or 6 rounds. Now it's a time to see whether Evander Holyfield can use his will and his tremendous experience to lift himself up and take the fight to Franz Botha. Al, how do you have this scored?
So far, to be perfectly frank, I've given every round to Botha. Good shots by Holyfield, though he wants to change that, doesn't he?
Boy, and Botha, after getting shot twice, tying him up again.
And the holding, I really believe you can make a strong case that Botha should be warned and maybe have a point taken away for the holding because he's doing a lot of it. And that doesn't mean he hasn't performed well in this fight. He has, but I think that's been part of one of the factors.
Holyfield coming out seems like a re-energized fighter through the first 50 seconds of round number 6.
Well, it's almost as if he knows the script as well as everybody else. When you get to this part in a fight, often Franz Botha has some issues. And let's see if Holyfield has that in his mind. It looks like it in this round.
And you're in a situation where Holyfield is almost taking those holds and those clutches and using them for a breather. He needs to push out and be more aggressive.
Yeah, that's probably true. And the problem is Bota's such a big, strong guy. He kind of wraps you up and he grabs that arm.
That would be a bear hug.
Yeah. Halfway through this round, and Holyfield's had a better round than he's had in any of the previous rounds.
And when he pops that jab, he can step in and get the right hand. That left jab is going to have to be a big-time weapon for him.
And what a difference in Botha. As he walks back now, not punching, with his hands lower. So it's almost as if...
Boy, this fight is following a script.
Yeah. Big left hook by Holyfield.
The crowd lifting his spirits. Botha continuing to hold. Fighters separated. Minute left in round number 6. Holyfield a little bit more energized fighter in this round. Works that right hand to the body, a good shot.
Whole different look to this fight here in this round. It's Holyfield, while he's not attacking with great combinations, he is landing better shots.
Big right hand by Holyfield. That left led it. It's a nice combination by the 47-year-old former world champion. Now you see Botha just kind of tossing his punches off. Holyfield working inside, showing a lot of power. Clearly his best round of the fight.
Botha just stopped in this round, really. We talked about it. This is the part in the fight where he usually has issues, and he's having them.
Is he hibernating? Oh, big right hand by Holyfield. And follows in. Botha very happy to get out of this round number 6. Two different fights, rounds 1 through 5 and round 6.
We'll see how Evander Holyfield was able to do much better in the last round. The left hand very low from Botha, and 2 right hands get home for Holyfield. He had landed a couple of very good combinations before that. And obviously Tommy Brooks, his trainer, is going to be happier with that effort. And now we're left with the question of whether Franz Botha can regain some of that momentum.
And how much does he have left in his tank? Not unheard for a fighter to take a round off, but unless he can come back and make a very concerted effort in round number 7, he could be in trouble. And here's a case how at the heavyweight level a fight can turn very quickly. Round number 7, Franz Botha in the black trunks, Evander Holyfield in the white trunks. The 4-time former world champion taking it to Botha in that round, and it continues here in round number 7.
And what's nice about this part for Holyfield is the number of punches he's throwing. You know, he looked very, to be blunt, he looked old for 5 rounds. And part of the reason he's looked better is because Botha's allowed him, oh, nice right by Botha. But Holyfield has taken advantage by at least throwing a lot of punches. And that's what you, I think, would hope to see from him.
Now, with Holyfield being more active as he opened himself up, is there opportunity for Botha to counter and get that big shot at him?
And we saw the right hand by Botha land, but it didn't stop Holyfield from coming forward. So you're right, there is an opportunity here.
Botha with a low shot. Now Holyfield connecting with 3 big lefts to the head. Botha clearly hurt. Boy, that looks like a wounded buffalo right there.
He wants to tell Holyfield nice punches, but guess what? You have to punch back.
The crowd coming to life here at the Thomas & Mack, a scene in some of the great fights in boxing history. Boy, big right hand by Botha, powering into Holyfield's stomach.
Well, this last couple rounds is a little more what we had hoped we would get, at least for a portion of this fight, and it's been fun to watch.
Oh, Botha showing surprising quickness, threw Holyfield off. This round started out all Holyfield. We saw it as a continuation of round 6. Yet Botha starting to step back. Al, do you have the feeling this thing could go 12?
Well, you know, the next few rounds are really going to be important, especially for Franz Botha. He's throwing a lot more arm punches, though, now, and that's a sign of fatigue. And, of course, his hands are very low.
Holyfield, with a pretty good 3 or 4 minutes of effort, has slowed down dramatically in the last minute and a half of round number 7. Crowd reacting to a right hand by Holyfield.
Holyfield's ripping the body much better now as well. He's throwing more meaningful body punches.
Holyfield, as is the custom, closing out the round well. And that'll do her for 7 rounds of boxing from the Thomas and Mack in Las Vegas, Nevada. Trip Mitchell, Al Bernstein calling the action. The White Buffalo goes into the corner and takes on some sustenance. What is his corner people telling him?
Well, you know, I think in his case, he's got to go back to a couple things that will work for him. One is the overhand right, and he's been trying it, but it hasn't been getting there.
And the question is, does he have enough in his tank to execute that game plan? And also, he probably has a lead in the scorer's cards coming out of the first 5 rounds. If he holds on, does he have enough to get the
Well, you know, one of those first 5 rounds may well have gone to Evander Holyfield as we look back at some of the left hooks that Holyfield kept cranking up. Even though his right hand was kind of held, he ripped those hooks. That, of course, is vintage Holyfield from days gone by.
And round number 8 coming up. Does Evander Holyfield have enough in that 47-year-old champion's body to finish off Fran Botha? Holyfield, a 30-pound weight disadvantage. Botha definitely dragging to the last 3 rounds. Botha, however, able to go. Oh! Botha down. Sneaking right hand right over the top. And Botha having some trouble taking advantage. Takes a look in the referee's eyes and can continue. That right hand had a lot of power.
Botha has been fading physically, and Holyfield's been landing big rights. See if he can stop him. It's early in this round.
And they'll step in. Evander Holyfield comes away with it in round number 8. Fran Botha fading, not able to stop the onslaught. Holyfield just outworked Fran Botha.
Well, you said it followed a pattern, and it really did, almost a script. We talked about the first 5 or 6 rounds normally being better ones for this man, Fran Botha. And he had troubles after that in this fight. And even though Holyfield didn't look good for the first portion of this fight, he was able to come back and stop Fran Botha, and we'll see how he did it. We think of the hook as the main Holyfield punch, but that was an overhand right that had lots of power on it and sent Botha down. And then he would land another right hand here in this sequence that would create some problems for him. There's the right hand. And at this juncture, Russell Morris stepping in. It wasn't those were monstrous punches, but there was the impression that Botha was not going to be able to defend himself. And 47, Evander Holyfield gets it done.
And you're right, it was going downhill for him, and the decision to step in probably might have been a hair early, but certainly Botha was in trouble.
He was, and the way he was fighting and the energy he was showing indicated that perhaps he was not going to be able to gain that edge back again. And Holyfield gets what he so badly needed in this fight, a win to extend his hope of stepping back into the upper echelon of the heavyweight division. It was, for the first beginning of this fight, it wasn't exactly a brilliant performance, but once he got rolling, he did throw a number of punches. So from that standpoint, certainly not the combinations we have seen in years past from Holyfield, but still combinations nonetheless, and some power to knock out a big man.
And let's take it up to ring announcer Jake Gutierrez.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Russell Morris stops this contest at 55 seconds of the 8th round. The legend has returned. He is now the new WBF heavyweight champion of the world, Evander, the real deal Holyfield.
And Evander Holyfield showed that he's in superb condition in a situation where he was behind early, worked his way out of it, used his will to force Botha back, followed the big right hand with a flurry of activity, able to get the stoppage. We see him with Frank Luca, and at 47 years of age, he answers a lot of critics and is really in a position to further his career and maybe, just maybe, win another world championship fight. Evander Holyfield, a supremely conditioned 200 120 pounds. Now let's take it up to our colleague, Al Bernstein, at ringside.
You just killed him. See if I don't know if you can you speak with us, Franz? Okay, I know it's tough. No. Thanks. Here with Franz Botha, and Franz, this fight unfortunately followed a script that a couple of times has bedeviled you. You were very effective for the first 5.5 rounds, and then things kind of came apart in this 6th round.
Yeah, you know, I give all blessing and everything to Evander. Great fighter. I made mistakes. He capitalized on my mistakes. And, you know, he landed a shot that mattered.
You were able to land some very effective punches early to the body and those overhand rights. The first punch you threw was an overhand right, and you got to him. You were able to do some good work, but then was it conditioning a little bit in that 6th round that got you?
Conditioning always got a part to do with it. I mean, I had him going. I think I was like basically winning every round. And you know what? But what matters is how it ends.
Yeah, it's not where you start, it's where you finish, I guess. Now, for you, this fight represented an important opportunity. Where does this leave you at this moment in your career?
Damn, I don't know. You know, it's I gotta go back. I gotta sit down on my management team. Gotta think where am I going? Evander's I think he's got another shot going, and who knows? Maybe I can get it, crack at him again. You never know.
What's your assessment of Evander's performance and his power vis-a-vis other heavyweights you faced recently?
You know, he's a tremendous skillful fighter. I mean, he didn't win the Olympics for nothing, you know. Yeah. And it was an honor for me to be in the ring with him and to be associated with his name. And you know what? We'll see how he goes forward. All right.
Good luck to you and a good effort.
Thank you very much.
Let's send things back down to Trip Mitchell, and then we'll be talking with Evander Holyfield in just a moment.
Thanks, Al. And Frans Botha, definitely a warrior. There's someone who enjoys fighting, and in his years off from boxing, getting involved in MMA and kickboxing. This is a guy who's a battler and maybe will have some great things in his future. Now we'll take it up to Al Bernstein with Evander Holyfield.
Here with Evander Holyfield, and Evander, your performance tonight was in 2 parts. The first part of this fight, as so often is the case with Frans Botha, he does well over the course of 5 or 6 rounds. You were having a hard time getting to him. What was the issue early in the fight?
Well, you know, the big part, he positioned his body.
There you go. That's better.
He knew how to position his body in a better way. You know, it looked like an easy hit, but
yes.
he can turn the body, and you know, he got a good overhand.
Yes.
And
well, the first punch he threw was an overhand right, and it landed.
Yes, it did. It did. But the most important thing is that he got very good defensive skill, and it don't look like it when you see it from the outside. But he was able to tangle me up inside. He was able to. He was a smart fighter.
Now, the interesting thing is, when we got around the 6th round, you found a home for the right hand, which we don't always think of you as a right-handed puncher. Your left hook is so effective, but that right hand had lots of power on it.
It did. Tommy kept having to do the 1-2.
Tommy Brooks, your trainer.
Unfortunately, he kept bagging back, and so I know if I miss him with the right hand, my head is up, he can catch me with something. So I was very hesitant to do that, but all of a sudden, once in the 6th round, I realized that he was winded enough that I knew he couldn't come back and catch me with anything.
And did you feel him slowing down at the beginning of that 6th round, and then you were able to start unloading punches?
Well, yes. You know, the big thing is that, you know, he's very quick to be a big man, and the fact that is when he got his 5th and 6th round, I could see that he was tired. He was holding more. He wasn't throwing. He wasn't balling his hands up with the punches and stuff like that. He was just, he was just wailing. It wasn't no hard punches. So I realized he was tired.
How do you rate what you did in the ring here today, and how does it make you feel about moving forward? Clearly, once you got this fight rolling in your favor, you were able to perform very well.
Well, you know, I'm giving myself a 70, but, I realized that I can get better, and because I can get better.
You're one of the few guys that said I can get better at 47 here, you know?
Well, I know I can. The fact is, I really ain't been in the ring that long.
A long layoff coming in.
And so, realistically, someone's working, you're not, you don't get no better not working. So, I just want to thank God for allowing me to press through. Because he kept caught me on the end of my rib in the first, which made me holler in the ring, and he heard it. And so that's when he kept going to my body.
All right, well, congratulations on a good effort. I know we're going to see you again soon. And in a moment, I'm talking to Frank Luca here, who put this excellent show on. But you want to fight again soon, don't you?
Very soon.
Congratulations on a good effort. I want to take a moment here to bring this gentleman in who has been around some great heavyweights in the past, former trainer and manager of Ernie Shavers, Frank Luca from Crown Boxing, who promoted this. Evander Holyfield gave us a very, very gritty performance when he got rolling here about how heavyweights do that.
Yeah, that's for sure. And Fran Botha gave him a real good test, and he sure came to defend his title. And I just want to publicly thank the Nevada State Athletic Commission for letting me put this fight together and letting it happen here at the historic Thomas and Mack. I want to thank Darren Libinati and his entire crew, and of course you, Al Bernstein, the voice of boxing.
We had fun here, Frank. Thanks a lot. So tonight, Evander Holyfield gets the job done after having some difficulties against Frans Botha and wins, so he can continue his effort to try and still be a factor in the heavyweight division and perhaps win another world title. Send things back to Trip Mitchell.
Thanks, Al Bernstein and Frank Luca. And we're so happy that you joined us tonight on the worldwide pay-per-view. We got a chance to see a four-time world champion, Evander Holyfield, coming back at 47 years of age, down 3 or 4 rounds in the cards, came back, took it to Frans Botha, and we've seen why he is a true champion. Well, we hope you enjoyed our evening of boxing from the Thomas and Mack. For my partner Al Bernstein, I'm Trip Mitchell saying we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Good night, everyone.